This is Clay Whittington, and you're listening to the Garrett Smith Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast. And what you didn't hear is that this is actually take 3 because we were laughing already. So if we got through 15 seconds, sorry folks, it's been a couple weeks. So let's see if I can even get through this. It's 2020. It's summer 2020 to make it even worse. So everybody kind of needs a good laugh. Speaking of, well, actually, before I dive into what you've been up to, I guess I should tell everyone who's listening. Clay Whittington, pianist extraordinaire. I once claimed that he was a combination of Elton John and Jesus. And to my disappointment, he's not gone under the stage name Elton Jesus yet. But
probably shouldn't do that.
Has been. I know. It's the internet. Nobody gets offended. Come on. But I guess since you do work for a church. Anyway, Clay Whittington is a church music leader, a cruise line music leader, outdoor musical productions. Gosh, I don't even know what else to throw in there. He's got a long rap sheet. So, with nothing further ado, Clay Whittington.
I'm just taking whatever job y'all give me, apparently.
Well, I hope your agent told you this is a non-paying podcast.
Well, then we need to hang up now.
All right. Well, we made it in minute 30. This was the Garrett Smith Podcast.
Nah. What have I been up to? Well, like you said, it's 2020. It's summer 2020. So much like the rest of the world right now, absolutely nothing, Garrett. So
you have been giving us a lovely Quarantunes concert every how often do you do those?
Quarantunes with Clay every Thursday night, 7:00 Eastern time, on during quarantine, I guess. So most of the time that Facebook pops up with a reminder for those, I'm either driving or I'm off somewhere, and I'm don't watch it
Zuckerberg.
While you're driving, man. Don't watch it while you're driving. So that'll be you can listen to it in your cars if y'all need something to listen to. Well, there's plenty of better stuff to listen to.
You heard it there, folks. Garrett Smith album is now available, except it's not. What kind of requests do you get on those? Because I've heard some standard, run-of-the-mill songs, and I've heard some that are out of the box. Plus, I know you well enough to know you can never predict what's going to pop out. So,
true.
What have been some of those highlights?
Being a live stream thing. Viewable by the public, and apparently having some kids watching it too. I certainly am mindful of the things I say and sing.
Did you find that out the hard way, or did you prepare to have kids listening?
Well, I did not expect kids to be listening to a piano bar, but I guess that's the byproduct of having parents who want to listen, and the kids are in the room. And like this, all you have to do is play the Pokemon theme song, and they perk up and start listening. So after that, you got to play it safe. So
is that the I want to be the very best Pokemon theme, or whatever happened after we stopped paying attention Pokemon theme?
I didn't realize there was more than one.
I don't know. It's kind of like SpongeBob, SpongeBob references come from the first season, and then after that, it's like, oh yeah, I guess he's still doing stuff.
Oh yeah, it shocked me to find out that Power Rangers was still a thing 20 years after I remember watching it.
Yeah, one of my old students showed me this video where they did they tried to see how many of the actors that could get back to the show, and they basically had all the different squads from since we were in kindergarten till now just kind of band together, and then they had the original group, and the only one that showed up I think was the Green Ranger.
Right.
But he was the only one that mattered. So you've been doing the Quarantunes, and try not to offend children, because then when you offend children, you have to hear from Karen.
There's so many Karens out there.
There's so many Karens. I did see on Facebook, of course it would have been on Facebook, there was somewhere a woman was holding up a Karen against, I forgot what it was. It was basically her name was Karen, so she was just owning it. But she was making fun of it, and then people were still mad at her because she was being a Karen. It's like, folks, she's making fun of it.
That's just it, though. I look on Facebook and see that so many people initially look at what is to me, very obviously a satirical article or something, and or somebody just joking or being sarcastic, and it starts legitimate fights. Yeah, and like, oh my god, okay, what was it? Babylon B shared.
I was about to shout them out.
Yeah, like they shared an article, like obviously satire, where Barnes and Noble announced that they were no longer carrying the Bible because it wasn't relevant in today's world or something like that.
Oh no!
And oh my god, like every person in my friends list over the age of 60 was like, I'm no longer shopping at Barnes and Noble. I can't believe they would do something like this. And the first thing in my mind was, okay, as a kid, my parents and grandparents specifically told me two things. Don't believe everything you see on the internet, and basically just stay away from strangers. But the first thing was like, don't believe everything you see on the internet. I'm like, okay, yeah, I never did. And now I'm having to tell my grandparents and parents the same thing. Like, really? Like,
while we order a stranger online to come pick us up and take us home.
Right, exactly. That's what I was getting at with the stranger thing. Now we, like, I'm listening to them say, don't believe everything you see on the internet, but I'm also ordering a stranger to come to my house. I'm giving him my address and saying, hey, come pick me up and take me here.
Well, there's a few quick fact checks you can do. I think you shared one the other day about, like, it was a chart of where all the news articles come from and which ones are reliable, which ones are right, which ones are left, which ones are neutral. I was triggered because, you know, I'm a C-SPAN guy, and it that is the ultimate neutral, because it's literally a camera watching Congress with no commentary. I'm like, man, that's my jam. And then when they show Parliament,
true. Where did they put that? Where did they put C-SPAN on that?
I don't think that was on there. I think it was just like completely left off.
Oh, okay. Well, then it's not news. It's no longer opinion. Yeah. Now. It's just.
Well, that's one fact check people can do. The other one is, if someone says to share this picture of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, please make sure that it's not Obi-Wan Kenobi from Star Wars before sharing it.
Right. Oh my God.
I've seen that one 2 or 3 times now.
See, I tried to get my grandparents with that, like print out a photo of Obi-Wan and say, here, I've got you a picture of Jesus. And I mean, my mom's mother knew exactly who Ewan McGregor was, so she was just like, why did you bring me Obi-Wan Kenobi? That's not funny. Because, yes, my grandmother is awesome, and she knows pop culture references.
Shout out to our grandmothers out there.
Exactly.
Well, on the music front, because I feel you and I could probably spend 2 hours making fun of all the Chads and Karens that we encounter on a daily basis, but
is that what you call the male version of Karen?
No, Chad? Those are I don't know. Have Chads moved on from Gen Z to millennial yet? I call the group Gen Z idiots, but I probably shouldn't, because that's probably who all's going to buy my albums when they come out. So I'm just kidding. My mother will buy my album. That's about it. But if you want to lose hope in humanity, just get on Twitter instead of Facebook. It goes. Facebook is an eye roller. Twitter is just like, I quit. But
oh yeah. Of course, I go to Twitter to blow off steam. Mostly because like none of. Very few, if any, of my, I'll just say friends on the opposite side of the aisle are there. Like, none of them are. And you're not going to run into these grandparents that say, don't believe everything you see on the internet on Twitter, because they just don't get it. So,
well, I'm a libertarian, so people with my mindset aren't anywhere.
Well, you'd be shocked.
No, shout out to... I won't just name one. All those pages that overuse the Ron Swanson meme. I mean, seriously, find original material, but I feel you. Before I move on from social media, I will just say, quit giving Sam Elliott quotes that he never said.
Quit giving everybody quotes they never said.
True.
I'm sure you're going to misquote me.
That's how I'm gonna promote this episode. There's going to be a meme of Clay Whittington.
She's just going to pull random words that I said to say that, like, I hate kittens or something.
I hate kittens, Clay Whittington.
Yeah. See, you can just pull that audio.
There
right
we go. That'll be the meme we use with words that were never
there
said.
Goes my fan base.
Well, speaking of pictures, because all I would have to do is take one of you at a piano. Tell us about how you got involved with music. Like, did you just pick it up during childhood? Were you born with it? Take us through your journey. Page 1.
Well, I guess it started with just piano lessons at 8 years old. That I
teaching them or taking them at 8 years old.
Yes. Yeah, no, not taking piano lessons with Miss Carolyn Horton in Kinston, and I remember fighting it. I didn't want to take piano. Like my grandmother saw that. Apparently, to her, I would walk up to a piano and want to play it rather than like bang on it like a normal kid does. I've since proven I'm not a normal person. So, no, but I mean, Mom put me in piano lessons, but it was a girl's instrument, and like that's taboo in the 90s for a boy to be in a girl's thing. And then like one day I realized that it's not necessarily for girls, but it sure gets girls.
Heyo.
But no, I mean, I really just from a young age liked. I'd say I like performing, but more than in that, I think I just like standing in front of a crowd and making a fool of myself. Which I still do, which is literally what I do in these piano bar type shows and with the cruise line. And some will say is what I do when I'm playing organ on Sunday mornings. So.
What kind of scene did you hit first? I mean, did you just jump straight into church music, or what? What was what did you see yourself doing?
I have no idea. Like, I mean, looking back, I'm thinking, I wanted to play. I didn't really see myself in a specific arena. Like, I'd always bounced back and forth from playing live music to even music theater to church music. And I didn't think that any of those had to be mutually exclusive. But I have a love for all three worlds. But as for which one I saw myself in more, growing up in Kinston, North Carolina, religion or Christianity is embedded in day-to-day life. It's people call us the Bible Belt for a reason. So that's where you would find all of the pianos in town, is in the churches, really. And it was, if you wanted to regularly perform at the piano or play for a group, that's where you did it. And of course, it also looks bad when the congregation walks out during your performance. So that's another plus, is it doesn't really look bad if they just walk out of your piano bar show. It looks bad on them if they walk out of church. So it's like, it's
Guilt
forced
trip.
audience, Garrett. That's what you have to figure out. Forced audience.
I was actually, the last time I almost walked out of a session of something, it was, and I won't say where I was working at the time, but I will say that there was a presentation being given, and it was so bad. It was so boring and just very self-indulgent. And I was like, and I tell my boss, I was like, dude, I'm about to walk out and pretend I have to go to the bathroom, but just not come back. And as I'm about to stand up, the speaker says, let's talk about racism, because it's a discussion that some people like to stand up and walk out of. And I'm like, I'm going to get comfortable.
Yeah, you can't do that.
No, and then he didn't really address racism. It was kind of weird, but I was like,
he probably saw you standing up.
He knew.
Yeah, he knew what you were doing.
I believe, and this is kind of skipping ahead, but there's a certain song I believe you played, and I can edit this out of the podcast if you would like, but you left a certain job with an organ serenade one time, if I remember correctly. I don't remember where that was. Did you play Take This Job and Shove It one time?
Yes, it's a Johnny Paycheck from my last paycheck. With a certain nameless church.
Nameless.
Yeah, it was. I don't. To my knowledge, nobody in that congregation knew what I was playing. But as the postlude, or as the final piece, as everybody was leaving, I did play Johnny Paycheck's "Take This Job and Shove It."
That's amazing.
I mean, I'll admit I have played some things in church that, depending on who you ask, might get me fired, or might have gotten me fired once upon a time. I mean, I haven't done any of that stuff in the past few years.
Yeah, job's
but
great.
I mean, another one was another church. The pastor and I did not see eye to eye on something. We'll just put it that way.
That happens in churches?
Oh my God. Like almost never. No. Put a group of people together that try to think alike, and you're still gonna. So he made a decision about the service that morning that I was not really hot on. So during the opening procession, I threw the song "Send in the Clowns" into the organ prelude, and a couple people called that one. And, of course, it was obviously while they were processing up the aisle to the altar. And I think that's reason number 6,527 of why Clay Whittington is going to hell.
Unless, I mean, if you were in a Methodist church, we agree on everything, every topic. We're good.
Well, obviously, that's why we're splitting.
Yeah. Wait, what? No, you can always just tell them, hey, that's what John Wesley used to do. He used to go to pubs, and they would turn drinking songs into hymns, and then voila. You just tell them, I'm just pulling a John Wesley. That's all I'm doing. Well, there was another time that I know you played songs out of their due call, and I will get to that in a second, so we'll put a pin in that, but one thing led to another. He knows where it's going.
I know where you're going with that.
He knows where it's going.
I just had that conversation with Bill last week.
Shout out Bill Anderson if you're listening to this and you haven't shut us off yet.
He cut us off 5 minutes ago.
Now he's tuning back in, like, what are they about to say? So you ended up at East Carolina. You know what led to that? I mean, obviously it's close to where you grew up, but that's kind of where you.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I mean, ECU is about 30 minutes. It's in Greenville. It's 30 minutes down the road from where I grew up. But everybody in my family that has gone on to a 4-year university or higher everybody in my immediate family anyway has gone to ECU, right up to my grandfather, who got his master's in well, this is embarrassing.
In something.
I've gone blank. Yeah, I think business administration, I think, or MBA.
That's interesting. And, for my Texas audience, just to kind of clarify, I would say that ECU is the Texas Tech of North Carolina. Geographically further away than the rest, underrated, hates the weird colored one that has a stranglehold on the others. You know, it's just kind of a parallel.
Yeah.
The weird colored ones being Texas and UNC.
Carolina.
Yeah.
Oh, never mind. Oh, yeah.
They have the same thing, different places.
I joke on Carolina every chance I get.
I saw that the other day. So don't. What was it about wearing a mask or something? There's people.
Oh yeah, don't be embarrassed to wear a mask in public. People wear Carolina hats every day.
So you ended up there, and you were at ECU when you first connected with Texas. I guess that was a good segue. I wasn't even planning it.
Actually, I was at a community college my first year.
Oh, that's right. You were at Lenore.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I need a soundbite, and I'm setting myself up to where I'm actually going to find it. King of the Hill, every time Bill yells, Lenore.
Oh, my God.
I'm too lazy to look that up though. But yeah, so you were at Lenore, and then how'd you end up at Texas?
Well, see, a friend of mine had done the show before, back when it was Texas Legacy. Say that was like 2003.
I'm gonna bleep that out.
Yeah, I mean that's the best thing you can do with that show. A friend of mine played, I think, Quanah Parker in Texas Legacy. Not ages ago. It's been about 20 years ago. Which, I mean, that's another thing we probably shouldn't even get into. He's a white guy playing a Native American.
As you were saying, I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, even though he's historically real, can we
Texas
have him?
Texas Legacy is terrible because they supported Redface, Garrett.
Yeah. Man. How to torpedo a 60, 70-year-old production in one podcast.
Right. I mean, it's basically already gone.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know if we know anybody who's still there.
Right.
I mean, I'm still wondering if they have all 6 flags that go across the canyon at the end, but I won't touch that one either.
Woo. Yeah, I'm going to stay away from that one myself. But he had done the show and was introduced me to a few the directing or the artistic staff members at the Institute of Outdoor Drama auditions that were held in at that time UNC Chapel Hill, the Forbidden Campus, and
the other production that shall not be named.
Right. So the Institute of Outdoor Drama was they're no longer a thing, but they held auditions there every year. They were based out of Chapel Hill. But I mean, it was just a place where a bunch of these outdoor theater companies, like Tecumseh, I believe, up in Ohio, and then Under These Hills, quite a few of them here in North Carolina, and The Lost Colony, also written by the author of Texas, Paul Green. And now I went to that audition. I'm pretty sure I got in based on him knowing the staff, because dude, if you ask me, name one audition that you completely bombed in your life, my mind always goes to that day. I stood in front of, like, at that time they were bringing groups of like 20 people in to do the monologue part of the audition, and we had to like do these monologues in front of that group, whereas all the directors sat up in the seats of this like auditorium classroom type thing on campus. But I stood up. I don't even remember what the monologue was from. It was like one of those basic audition monologue books. But I'm standing in front of the group, and I get one line into my monologue and lose it. And I just like, I'm like mid sentence, got my hand up, and I'm like, I just turned around and said, I'm sorry, I've lost it. And they were like, oh, okay, cool. I mean, they were very nice. Like, you can try again in a few minutes. I was like, oh, cool, thank you. I mean, at that point, I'm already like mortified. And I mean, because you've got all these like other students that are actually in acting programs. I wasn't. Like, that wasn't what I was in school for. But like, they're all staring at me, and it's obvious, like, what's on their faces. Oh my God, this guy sucks. How much of this do I have to sit through? I'm embarrassed for him. Da, 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 da. And it was, so anyway, like, they go through the entire line and then come back to me, and they're just like, Mr. Whittington, you want to try again? Sure, I guess. And I stood right in front of everybody and said, I'm sorry, this really ain't for me, y'all. No. And like, I can't remember the monologue. This is the first time I've had to do this in front of a group like this. And so that's the kind of people that Texas hires. No, I'm kidding. No, I honestly, if it wasn't for like, I bombed the monologue, but I mean, I thought the vocal performance part of the audition went very well. So they hired me in the chorus. Went to Texas expecting to just sing in the background chorus for the show, and ended up like they're like, does anybody here play mandolin? Here's my hand. Okay, cool. Well, okay, you're gonna come over here for this number, and then like they stuck me with mandolin, guitar, banjo. The second year I was there, the piano, and of course the second year I was there, I was only hired for the band or the onstage band. So that was so much more fun though, because while everybody was in these intense like movement and choreography rehearsals, like the band was just in another room, just like talking smack to each other. And
it's true.
like I mean, dude, like, we should have been fired a couple of those days. Because we'd get in there and it was like rehearsals start at like 1 PM or something, like right after lunch, and we go into the band rehearsal room. Everybody's broken off away from the company meeting and everything, and we go in the rehearsal room and we're there for all of 15 minutes before one of the other guys goes, I could use a cigarette. Okay, cool. Well, let's take a break. And like after working only 15 minutes, we'd take a 30-minute break for somebody to throw back a cigarette. Meanwhile, I don't smoke, so we're out there like I'm just like, okay, well, I don't know what to do. But then we go back in, rehearse another 15 minutes, and then one of the guys is like, man, I need guitar picks and strings and all that or whatever. Like, we should go to Amarillo and go to the music store.
I'm going to pause
like,
this.
Because we need...
I need to reiterate to anyone listening. So I didn't actually specify that Texas is the name of the musical in Texas that we were working at. And we're not dissing sense. On who Texas hires, but at that, it could still be true. I don't know if it's still this way, but at the time it was the largest outdoor theater production in the country. I have no clue if that's still the case or not. I haven't been to the show in about 10 years, but Amarillo, it's in my hometown of Canyon, and it's right outside of Palo Duro Canyon, second largest canyon in the country. That is still true. And it's right outside of Amarillo, Texas. So really, you're like 10 minutes from the quote-unquote city, about 200,000 people. So just to kind of set the stage of the middle of nowhere place that we spent these summers. And
right.
Continue.
Which, I mean, it can also be said that the statement goes, I mean, can mean many things when you say Texas hires unqualified people. But no, I mean, and like amazingly, we I think we got all the music together for the show to a I would say a performable standard, but by no means not even flirting with our music director's standards.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he's an amazing musician, and at that time I just wasn't into it as much. So I'm just here to have fun. All right. But
was Roland directing both summers?
Yes. Okay. Yes, he was.
Shout out Roland Salazar. What's up, bud?
If he's listening.
But I'm gonna send it to him.
Oh my God. But don't let him hear this. Never mind. I can't say that.
That's okay. Y'all, there's a scene in the outdoor musical called the Plum Picker scene, and they have like all the dancers are out there, and they take this like blanket and they throw one of the dancers like 30 feet in the air, and they do these kicks, and I don't think they flipped, but they did all these like little tricks. I don't know the dancing terms.
So dangerous because some of them were trying to see how high they could get the person.
Well,
and
there was a fateful night, and I won't go into detail about this night because you'll know exactly which one I'm talking about, but there was a party at a place called the White Barn outside of Canyon, and a bunch of people gathered around. They took Roland, threw him on a blanket, and they played that song, and they started throwing him to the roof of the barn. And I was like, dude, everyone's wasted. This dude's going to hit the pavement any second.
Oh, that night.
What night?
Okay.
I don't know.
No. I just remember the White Barn party was like, I was like, why don't I remember this? And now I'm like, oh, that was the day that I think I got like tore up from the floor up. Yeah. Before the party started.
Yeah, I don't even think you made it.
Yeah, I didn't make it. I like I told everybody I wasn't feeling good. I was just drunk. But
well, it would have been a game changer on how the night went. But
yeah, that was just. I mean, outside of the canyon, for me, that was just an interesting summer.
Well, that's kind of how you and I met. So Clay kind of had he was burning the candle at both ends here. So he would go and he'd rehearse with the band, and then he worked at the office all day when I was working in PR and marketing. And so Clay first worked there. You were there in your first summer was 07. No. Yeah, yes. 07.
Yeah.
My first one was 08. And I got a friend request. It was like, I don't think I was still doing MySpace at this point. It was just a Facebook. And it was like, Clay Whittington, name sounds familiar. Because I had to edit everyone's bios. So I was still putting faces to names or whatever. And I walked by, and one day Clay has his own office right next to our director, and I was like,
"I know, right?"
I was like, "Are you Clay?"
Still to this day have no idea how I got that. But
I know how you got it. I just don't know how we kept our offices. But
see, that's just it. Like I don't think I did remotely enough work to merit my own office, like ever. Yet here I am. I have my own office at the church, and I think I'm there for all of 2 hours a week.
Nice.
But
well, you looked mad when we first met. And I'm like, I wonder what that guy's deal was. What I later found out was he was trying not to fall asleep because he would work all day, and then you'd go out and play at the canyon all night. And by the time we'd get home, I mean, then there's parties afterwards, and I mean, like, sleep did not exist that summer. And
no, yeah, what's sleep? Like, yeah, I know there were quite a few times where I fell asleep at that desk.
Well, that's how the stamp came into play.
Yeah, that freaking stamp. Man.
We had this stamp that was for deposit only. It was for checks, and I don't know how it started, but our friends Erica and Shauna, somehow Clay would fall asleep, and we'd stamp his forehead.
Oh, we got y'all too.
Yeah, it ended up becoming a nobody's safe kind of.
Don't act like it was only my head. All right.
It started with your head. Well, yeah, we all went home with for deposit only TPHF stamps on our forehead that summer, and then
I think I did the show with it on there one night.
Did you really?
I don't know. Well, it's probable.
I went to see Shauna and a friend once. No, it was one Christmas. And again, Bill, if you're still with us, I apologize. We're in Bill's house, and there's this random stamp on the corner, and I think I stamped Shauna with it, and I think she got me. I was like, I don't even know what this stamp is, and it's still happening. Don't worry, Bill, I didn't get it on anything. Then, let's see, so we would go down, and then before long, so Clay and I ended up, we had like an office crew. There were like 4 of us, and we were never bored because we were always busy, but boredom ideas still happened. And I don't even remember half of them, but there was stuff like every time the musical would start, there'd be this trumpet playing, and there was this, yeah, it's like embedded in our heads. And so,
oh, dude, I've got one of the original cast recordings that they did. I'm gonna have to send it to you.
I did too,
but it's got that music on there. So anyway,
the original script was dark. That's a whole other podcast episode. But
oh my god,
there'd be a rider on the rim, and it was this big long tradition because the play had been around over 50 years, and so this guy would ride or gal would ride with a flag, Texas flag, on the rim of the canyon. And we got this bright idea that's like, there needs to be a streaker on the rim at the end of the season. And it went from that to like, there's this pyrotechnic lightning bolt that goes off in the middle of it. And we were like, hey, one night we should get the crew to just move the lightning bolt way off to the side because everyone's waiting for it in this one spot. Just freak everyone else out. Or get them to, they tried to get me to flip the switch on it one night and get me fired. I was like, no, dude. But, or like fire it off in the middle of a quiet scene in the middle of the show before it's the right time. It's like, dude, there's so much I could do, but yeah, I don't know. The stuff has changed so much. I don't think you can do anything like that because Clay did 07 and 08. I did 08 and 09. 09, right. It was the last time I was out there as an employee, and I actually snuck into the wash tub at the bottom of the windmill, shirtless with a cowboy hat on, and just kind of sat there. And the director was out of town that weekend, and I knew it was my last time, so I just kind of went for it. But it's one of those. It's hilarious until you're on the stage, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is a bad idea, you know. And
well, like, remember that night that it was that weekend that I visited. and we got the costume department to give us like basic clothes.
Oh yeah.
And we did the I don't know what it's called, the zombie scene.
Yeah.
The dream sequence, that's what they called it. Like, it's got to be a technical term. The zombie scene. Anyway, we walked across the back and forth a few times. And like, there were other cast members who like it was their first summer and they didn't know who in the world I was. And they were just like, what are you doing?
And I technically wasn't in the cast. I worked at the office, so there was a whole. Oh, I got in so much. I snuck on the train one night that they take through the canyon, and the technician guy was like, "You know what would have happened if that had gotten lost in the canyon?" I'm like, "Where are you gonna lose a train in a state park? You know, like, come on,
dude. You know, like, I'm okay." Okay.
Bill, we're
All
so
right,
sorry.
Here we go. All right. Full disclosure. I think we had a lot of people that, especially, well, I won't even say especially. No, we just had a lot of people in the cast, crew, and front of house staff that took their authority, not their job, their authority, more serious than, in my opinion, than anybody ever should.
That went all the way up to the board.
Oh, it still does. Most of those people ain't even there anymore. But like, I just remember we had one assistant stage manager when we were actually rehearsing over in at WT. Like this was like the week before we actually started rehearsing in the canyon. Dude, I'm from North Carolina. Half my footwear is flip flops. All right. And I knew the rule. Like, no flip flops in the stage area. Like that's kind of like a unwritten rule and written rule in any theater you go to. I get that. Like, no open toed shoes. But it was on a day where the band wasn't anywhere near. Like, that week the band was rarely anywhere near that stage. So, I'd just throw on shorts, a t-shirt, and my rainbow flip-flops, and that Rainbow's a brand. I wasn't wearing rainbow flip-flops. Just throwing that out there.
You'd have heard about it if you were.
Oh, yeah. No. Rainbow's a brand. They were brown flip-flops, but also discovered while I was out there that nobody knew what the hell I was talking about when I said the other shoes that I wore were called Sperry's. They're like boat shoes.
Really?
Yeah, but they're made by a company called Sperry's. We don't call them boat shoes. We call them Sperry's.
No, yeah, I've only heard Sperry's, so I'm kind of surprised they didn't know.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, like everybody's like, there's no boats around here. I was like, I know, but North Carolina, shut up. Right. So, no, it was on a day where the band was like nowhere near the stage, and I was wearing flip flops, and like this dude comes out and sees me like multiple times within a day, like within the hour, gives me the first warning, second warning, and then the fine. And like, they dock your pay if you break a rule or anything like that. And I was just like, well, I'm sorry, it's really counterproductive for me to, like, especially when I'm here to play piano, nowhere near a theater where any of these, if they're scared, the stage weight's going to fall on my foot or something, I don't know. But Sperry's not going to help that either. But, no, but this is one of these guys that just took his authority way too serious. And like, he walked around threatening everybody with fines and everything. And I'm like, okay, fine. I get it. Like 18, 19-year-old kid. But, that'll grate on your nerves, man.
Well, it's pretty telling that we stirred up enough stuff that in the summer that Clay was not still there, we did a fundraiser called the Bring Clay Back to Texas Fund. We had it kind of started as a joke. We just put his face looking all sad on a jar at the front office, and I forgot it was there. And I came back later and people were putting money in it. I was like, oh. Well, we got Clay back, but it's interesting you mentioned the fines, because I remember people started getting fined if they did theme nights, and theme nights were kind of a big deal for a while. But the funniest one, so people would try to I think there was a Power Rangers night where everyone tried to do like one of those hand motions that the Power Rangers would do. And
yeah, you're right.
I'll never forget the night that they waived the fines and said go for it. It was the night that Michael Jackson died, and I have never seen that many because that was 09.
Okay,
that part where everyone strikes a pose at the end of the opening number, like Texas. Everyone did the thrust and the grab and the hand sign up in the air. I mean, it was like the walking graveyard line was the Thriller move. And then it was either Roland or Kyle. I can't remember who was conducting that night, but they conducted with one white glove on instead of two in the spotlight.
Oh my God.
I lost track of the references. And normally,
I just don't see Roland doing that. Just throwing that out there.
That night was just kind of whatever, just go for it night. And I remember I was with Bill up at the top in the director's box, and Dave walked up. We're all just standing. We're just kind of like laughing at everybody. We're like, well, there's another one. Oh, there's a reference. It was just like, how many could we spot?
I love it. That's hilarious. Like, I remember like a couple of them. I think my favorite was the whole pass the quarter night.
Oh, yeah.
Where like somebody walked on stage for the opening number with a quarter, but that quarter was not supposed to touch the stage floor, nor was it supposed to be set down, but it could not leave the stage for Act 1 and Act 2.
Oh, wow.
And we were successful. I'm pretty proud of it.
I'm sure throughout the decades, so many people could write a behind-the-scenes book about their time in that canyon. Like, anyone who says that there's nothing to do in Canyon, Texas is lying to you. You just got to find it.
If I were to write a book about the 2 years I was in Texas, it would be titled, How Did I Not Get Fired?
Well, I've got a book about a longer period of time than that, and there's 2 intermissions of the book that are simply those 2 summers.
Right, and then or we can just take OJ's title and say, If I Did It.
If I did it. I'm not saying I rode the train and got in the wash tub, but if I did, that's how it would have felt on stage. And y'all, this is just stories that came from 2 of us. We hung out with 2 other people that first summer, and then there were 3 others. Shout out Angela, Shauna, Evan. The next summer, it kept adding and adding on to all of it.
Right.
But yeah, before I take us out of Paladaro Canyon, I will just say that the reference I made earlier when Clay played the organ and how he's played other songs that were not timed well. There is a scene in the musical, or at least there was. They keep changing up the story. I don't even know what it's about anymore. There's a bunch of cowboys at like a chuck wagon campfire. And it's at night, and there's a mandolin player leaning against the wagon, and 2 of the characters are having a DTR or whatever. And
yeah.
So there was one night towards the end of my first summer where I got to be in a cameo. But the week before, I know it was more than a week. It was kind of like midway through the summer. I think you'd had enough, and you kind of had a moment of revolt with the mandolin. We're out there, and instead of...
I think that was the most trouble I got in. It was bad enough, and like looking back, yeah, I get that it was really unprofessional, and it was probably a copyright infringement. But if you did it, like, no, I did it. No, I remember Roland wanted me fined. Bill kind of fought for me. But I mean, I honestly would have understood being fined for multiple reasons. No, they were. It was on the, we called it the chuck wagon scene, I guess. All the cowboys were laying on the ground as if they were asleep around a campfire in front of a chuck wagon. Me and Brent Buffalo Head were supposed to be leaned up against the truck wagon playing me on mandolin, him on guitar. Pretty quiet scene while Calvin and Elsie, the characters, were engaged in some like I love you, but I hate you dialogue.
Oh, actually, it was that scumbag Dave Newberry.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, okay. I don't see. I mean, it's been 15 years ago. No, while they were playing that, I started playing what is apparently known as Leia's theme from Star Wars on the mandolin, and I look up and see Roland up in the box, like with his hands on his side, and like at first I was like, I can't tell if he's mad at me. I look over at Brent and go, and Brent's like trying his best not to laugh. Some of the guys around the chuck wagon are like about to lose their mess, man. And I find out after we get off stage, like I'm going to be fined for this. And I mean, I was mortified because at that point I had not done any. Okay, I had not been caught doing anything, and that would have gotten me fined. Aside from the whole flip flop thing, which is dumb, and I stand by that. But no, I will never forget that night. Apparently the fact that it was Dave instead of Calvin up there, I did forget that. But
I can't remember to change the laundry, but I can remember pointless stuff like that.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Same here. But I remember after that show as well, there was a guy in the audience. The band went out after the show and played basic stuff like Orange Blossom Special and stuff like that out in front of the theater as the guests were leaving. And one guy stopped me, and he goes, he leans in and whispers, "Was that Star Wars you were playing up there?" And I just looked at him and I said, "Maybe not."
If I did it, yeah.
Like if I did, like I wasn't sure whether this guy was asking because he was going to like write a bad review or like if he thought it was cool. But I remember, like, I don't remember if it was the same guy, but I remember during that scene, like looking out in the audience and making eye contact with a guy on the front row who was like looking what I thought was like right at me, and he was like grinning, and but I think it was the same guy.
Well,
but
I missed it. See, I was going down, those stairs that led to backstage from the front of house.
Oh yes.
So I was like back there when it happened. So like I could hear the play, but I couldn't really hear it, or I just wasn't paying attention. I ran into Bill afterwards, and Bill was cracking up laughing, just shaking his head.
Oh, I know.
And
Bill
I was like,
still
"What?"
laughs about
I was like, "What was that about?" Well, that's part one. Part two is the night they let me do my cameo right before summer was over. I got to be at the chuck wagon scene, and I'm laying down against the campfire, and I'm pretending to be asleep because I have zero lines. I'm just an extra. And yeah. I look up, and the last thing I saw before pretending to be asleep was Clay, and he gets this grin, and I knew something was about to happen. And he continues, "If you did it," to play Funky Town on the mandolin. So there I am. I had to roll over so that I'm facing away from the audience because I'm cracking up laughing while this DTR is happening.
Oh my God. See, and like I thought it was hilarious, but like it was.
Well, that
after the scene, I was mortified because I thought like I was either getting fined or worse, like going home.
We were the opposite of Marshawn Lynch. Ours was like, I'm just here so I'll get fined.
Right, yeah.
Well, pass to the musical. You went back to Carolina. I believe it was around 2010 when you put Himprov out, right?
No, 2013.
13. Oh, really? I thought it was. Yeah. You put something out before that, or maybe you started the Kickstarter. I don't remember. You put something out around 2010, and I'm just trying to remember what it was.
I don't even remember. 2010 was was when I left ECU the first time.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, and so yeah, I don't remember doing any big projects that year.
Huh. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe that's when you told me you were going to do it or something. I don't know. But Himprov, for anyone listening, was something I've never seen anybody do. It was just kind of a improv piano playing in the studio, and I'll let you kind of talk about how that came about, because I personally could never pull off what you did.
Yeah, the Himprov project is it's 2013. It was a project that I have actively tried to suppress, so thank you for bringing it up again, Garrett. No, I'm just kidding. But
I didn't do enough of that with the outdoor musical.
Right, yeah. So
there's gonna be 30 people that see this on Facebook from that, and they're like, "Oh gosh, that summer."
Right. Oh my God. So it has been like removed from digital platforms at least, but and that's honestly because I want to redo more than anything. But
I thought it sounded good.
No. I'm not saying it was bad. It was just like I want to do it a different way. The whole premise of the album was to take a series of hymns that a bunch of people submitted like titles for, and we kind of voted on what hymns would be included in the album. But the idea was that I walked into the studio, the guy hit record, and I just kind of took a set of hymns, like a bunch of hymns, and did like maybe 2 takes of each one of them. I mean, we were in and out of the studio for that album in 4 hours. But I mean, that's with mastering and everything. So it was a quick recording day. But the idea was kind of an improvised or meditative version of some of these hymns that were all of them are in the United Methodist hymnal. It started from a live show I was doing for a while where basically, and this was the beginnings of my piano bar, I think, or piano bar career, was I'd go in, I'd improvise on a set of hymns, and then wherever I was, I'd just have people shout out a hymn that they wanted to hear, and like include mashups with various hymns, which I mean, I still do that on Sunday mornings with the piano and the organ. Like, I mean, many of my preludes at church now are improvised, which is, I mean, it's a lot of fun. It's to me, it's a form of prayer and meditation in a way that, well, I pray, or in a way that I feel I speak to God. So I mean, that's kind of the whole idea behind the album. And what, when I was saying I wanted to redo, I mean, I didn't mean I wanted to necessarily get rid of it, but I just consider it like George Lucas was with Star Wars. It's never perfect.
So you're going to include Gungans and CGI in a music video?
No. I kind of want to, like, it was recorded in a digital format.
Yeah.
Like when I walked out of there with a USB stick with 10 WAV files. And from that point, put it on CD, put it on digital platforms, and sold it that way at live shows and at church. But what I wanted to do was, for multiple reasons, some of which being I prefer recording, or the sound that you get from recording in analog. Honestly, with improvised hymns, your target audience is not who I was targeting at that time. And I mean, aside from learning more about music, I've learned a lot about music marketing since then.
Yeah.
So it was, I mean, I was trying to sell a CD of piano hymns to 23, 24, 25-year-olds. And I'm sorry, but I mean, even, how old are you? Same age as me? Like, we go to Walmart, that's not the first thing we pick up.
We're 25, in case anybody wonders.
Yeah, we're 25. I'm 25.
Yeah, we'll just go with that.
I'm 25 and holding for about 8 years.
Yeah.
So I wanted to go back and do a similar project, this time with some vocals in more of an analog format. I want to record it reel to reel and actually have it pressed into vinyl.
Oh, cool.
This time. Just honestly, that's a matter of sound preference that has nothing to do with, I guess, the music itself or the concept of it. But
I have a song recommendation. Just because it would throw everyone off, you should end a whole hymn album with that "Don't Let the Door Hit Your Butt on the Way Out" song you had like in 2008. And just like,
oh my God, don't bring that up. Jeez, we're not talking about that. I will hang up this phone right now.
It's okay. I have a couple of those songs myself, but I just like,
right, yeah.
It's technically a goodbye song. It'd be the great sign off for every project.
Oh my God. No, I just need to either that or take this job and shove it.
There you go.
But,
that's not a hymn. Well, I played it in a church.
Right. And I might even throw "Send in the Clowns" in there too.
That can be the intro.
Or even better, Leia's theme from Star Wars.
There's no copyright there.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask how somebody ends up, going from playing church songs to being on Carnival cruises, getting everyone wasted. But you kind of answered it. I mean, you take recommendations, and it kind of leads to it. Did you ever throw a hymn into the middle of the bar just to see if it threw everyone off?
Every night. No. I mean, it wasn't to throw everybody off. It was because, especially late at night, you get a group of people that, people go on vacation to escape.
Yeah.
And, or escape really the real world. And in many cases, that meant meeting them on a, for lack of a better term, religious level.
Yeah.
And, not everybody wants the rowdy Sweet Caroline or Patricia the Stripper. So you really do have to cater to your audience while still keeping true to yourself. And the person I feel I am and was raised to be, I still very much appreciate hymns. I've done complete Bible studies based on a hymnal. And that's not what you asked. But
no, actually, it kind of is. It totally works because, I'm a fan of. There's a venue in Stafford. It's technically Houston, called the Redneck Country Club, and you would hear that and think, oh, that is a redneck bar. It's like one of the cleanest venues I've ever been to, and it's real bright, no smoking, real friendly atmosphere. And they have their bands, no matter who's playing, always close the night out with Amazing Grace. And people always stand up, they walk up to the stage, and it's just kind of a cool... you mentioned connecting with people on a certain level. There's kind of a, connection between the artist and the audience when that happens. And anyone that goes back and listens to the episode I did with Bree Bagwell, she kind of talks about that moment and what it was like for her band. So I think there's something to it.
Well, I also think you've got a lot of artists in today's world that if... I guess the labeling of them has changed so much in the past 60, 70 years, where if one artist puts out a Christian song, they're labeled as a Christian artist. I guess somewhat of an example of that would be like Creed.
Oh, yeah.
And, but you've got so many people that seem to just because they record anything that sounds remotely religious, all of a sudden, oh, I'm atheist. I'm not going to listen to this. Or you've got people on the other side that are listening to their more, their stuff with a more Christian message while they hear them sing something else and think, oh, I don't want to listen to that anymore. It becomes a label thing. I know people that tell me that, oh, I only listen to Christian artists. Okay, Karen, well, do your thing. But then when you go back to based on what my upbringing, my musical upbringing, really my preferences came from listening to the records and tapes that my grandfather would put on. And we're talking about artists like, Floyd Kramer for one, but Elvis Presley, Jerry Lee Lewis. These are people, and Johnny Cash. These are people that you would not call Christian artists. Take Elvis Presley did Viva Las Vegas, and pretty upbeat hearty, like not something you would hear in church at all, ever. But he also did complete albums of hymns like Mansion Over the Hilltop and gospel music and things like that.
Yeah, kind of like Wade Bowen. And you go from Redheaded Woman with a Cigarette to an entire gospel album where he's dedicating songs to his mama, and it's all religious.
Oh, exactly. I mean, like Jerry Lee Lewis performed like he did one of my favorite versions of that old gospel, I Saw the Light.
Yeah.
And is he who you think of when you think of contemporary Christian artists?
Right.
I mean,
well, my take on contemporary Christian artists, and this is why I'm glad you throw a spin on you kind of add your touch to what you do and you keep it your formula, is that I told somebody a couple of years ago, I said, in modern day quote unquote Christian music, you have to dress like Nirvana, sound like U2, and rewrite Amazing Grace 50 different ways. It's like what everybody does.
Yeah, I mean, you're not a true contemporary Christian artist until you've had your version of Amazing Grace.
Yeah.
And you've added your own chorus to it.
That's true. Before I get to the finale questions, the big three, I have to ask, what are some of your favorite venues or towns to perform whenever you're back in Carolina and kind of getting around the area?
Oh, man. Well, I mean, right off the bat, Tales Piano Bar in Wilmington is always a fun atmosphere. It's got this like 1920s feel. Like all of the decorations look like something out of The Great Gatsby or something. But it's the piano bar, and so you've got people that are there to they'll grab a martini, sit down, and make requests. They'll get involved in the games and everything, but I mean, Wilmington's just in general like a really fun place for musicians. And aside from that, like if I actually go to Kinston, the Queen Street Deli here actually opened up a piano bar themselves last year called Don't Tell Scarlett, kind of based off the idea of that piano bar. I think it's in New York. Don't Tell Mama. I've noticed a slight Gone with the Wind theme.
I think we can still
apparently controversial now.
No.
So, I mean, these are fun places where, I mean, people may not necessarily be coming for music. And I mean, actually, in many cases, they are. I would say in most cases, they are. They're, so...
Well, I definitely want to go see some of the venues. I want to play at least one show out there in Carolina, and maybe like get both of us on the ticket and song swap or something, because, you know, I've had a plan to get out and do a vacation out there. I go back to Carolina on average every 4 years. And so I mean, I can put you in a church here. It's like I said earlier, forced audience, man. Forced audience. Well, my last trip to Carolina doesn't really count because I spent half of it on the side of the road in the cold, and the other half, you know, I was like, I'm with your brother Paul trying to duct tape parts to my truck back on. So,
when was that?
That was 2016. I want to say December. I forgot the exact date, but
okay, I was in California.
Yeah, UMHB won the national championship the night before. I don't care what the NCAA thinks. We won. Yeah. But I will get out there. We are going to go to Raleigh. We're going to watch a Canes game. We're going to yell Canes win with Wade Minter, and we may have to revisit the Chili Willy at some point.
Oh, man. Okay, yeah, fine. I'll get prepped for that.
Yeah, I'll start prepping now.
Rumple Mints is your best friend.
Oh, gosh. Well, I normally ask a big 3 questions to every single guest, but you get 4. And the first one is Bojangles or Whataburger?
Whataburger. Oh, crap.
I was like, that was quick.
Okay, well, that's not an easy answer. That's not a quick answer. It's honestly not a quick answer.
I'll give you a cop-out.
For chicken, Bojangles. For burgers, Whataburger.
There you go. That's an easy way out, actually. I did combine them one time. On the same trip I just mentioned, I had Whataburger sauces on dry ice because that was my payment to Paul for him letting me stay at the apartment. And nice. First thing I did, I rolled into Knoxville, Tennessee on my way out there, and I went to Bojangles, took a chicken sandwich from there, and poured honey butter from Whataburger on there. And it was like the most amazing crossover since the Family Guy Simpsons episode. It was amazing.
That does sound good.
The best answer in the world is both. The big 3 questions: if you could collaborate musically with anyone out there, who would it be?
Ben Folds.
Cool.
Yeah,
I love when people have an immediate answer. You know, sometimes it's like, oh, that's tough. I mean, then there's other times where it's like, boom, Ben Folds.
No. I mean, everybody has. I think everybody has their artists that they watch.
Yeah.
Not just for music purposes, but to actually see how they like interact with audiences and work with other artists. Like, Ben Folds did a collaborative, few shows. I guess you'd call it a tour with Rufus Wainwright. And like the way his shows are, they're not like, I wouldn't say they're choreographed at all. It's very, I mean, like when I went to see him, he walks out on stage, waves at everybody. It's the most awkward thing in the world, but he just waves at everybody and sits down and starts playing. And like, I mean, a few times he spoke to the audience. I mean, he had stories and stuff like that, but it was very conversational. And like, to me, it made me connect with him as a person even more than if I were to go watch like Elton John, who, even though if I were to sit on the front row, I would still feel a mile away from him.
Yeah.
So,
that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
If you could headline any venue, where would you play?
Oh, the Troubadour.
Oh, nice. Okay,
yeah.
Full disclosure, I still have not seen Rocket Man.
Elton John got his U.S. start. So that is where I want to play one day.
Well, you know who my favorite rock band is, and that is also where they got their start. So I would kill to play there too. And then the big finale. What is the funniest or craziest story you could tell from your performing career so far?
There's a lot of them. Honestly, like, I mean, a bunch of those cruise ship gigs. I mean, just based on the type of people that, I mean, the various kinds of people that come into the piano bar. I mean, in most cases, they're just there to have a drink and request a few songs and go to bed or to wind their day down. But then you've got others that, like, the piano bar is why they sail. These people make it so much fun. I've made so many friends through that avenue. Some of them are like, I don't know how many times I've had a beer bottle fly right by my face with somebody saying, "Don't play that damn song."
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. So it kind of makes me wish they had kind of like here in North Carolina, in Seven Springs, North Carolina, there's this like really shady, seedy bar called Maynard's. I'm not sure if it exists anymore. For some reason or another, the only thing they actually sell at Maynard's is mixers. Like, you can't actually buy liquor or beer or anything like that. And it's because so you bring your own. And they will sell you the orange juice or the soda or whatever. Their stage has chicken wire in front of it because they know people will throw shit at the performers. Excuse me. They know people will throw stuff at the performers, including whether it's whatever they have in their hands, whether it be, I mean, nobody walks around with tomatoes anymore. So it's going to be beer bottles.
That's like an old roadhouse technique.
Oh yeah. And, but I mean, it's just times like that made me wish I had chicken wire between me and the audience. And then, I mean, that doesn't go just for cruise ships. I mean, I've had my share of interesting, I guess, clients. I don't know, for some reason or another, like, will go stop at anything to get their money back. I mean, some of these things, I mean, I've had drinks, whether accidentally or purposefully poured down my back.
Jeez.
So, I mean, it can get, I mean, I've never actually been hurt.
Yeah.
So knock on wood. But, yeah, I mean, so I would say as a whole, that's got to be the craziest experience between the people and, honestly, just waking up in Mexico every other day.
See, so, if that I play in Texas, so if I wake up after a gig in Mexico, something's gone seriously wrong. There's no,
not seriously wrong. It's just one border away.
Oh, gosh. Well, this may have to be a repeat interview sometime because I'm sure we could go down the rabbit hole of some more stories, but I'm glad we were finally able to do this because whenever I started this podcast up, I remember we were texting. It was like, we got to make this one happen.
Yeah. How long ago was that?
21 episodes ago.
Oh, fair enough. Okay, yeah. Well, awesome. Yeah, let's do it again.
Sounds good. Awesome. Well, y'all check Clay Whittington out on. I almost said online, like as if there's anywhere else to check out music these days.
Yeah, right now I'm not going anywhere.
Joe Exotic on the internet worldwide.
I do play some of his stuff. That's probably the craziest request I've ever gotten.
Hey,
was "Here Kitty Kitty" by Joe Exotic.
I was actually going to play that one, but I didn't have enough time to learn it, so I just did "I Saw a Tiger."
Dude, learn it. It's fun.
It
makes everybody laugh.
Because we all know Carol Baskin did it.
There's no way she didn't.
No. Sardine oil. Even OJ admits it. All right, folks. Right. This has been episode 21 with Clay Whittington. Tune in next week if I haven't gotten canceled or if Bill Anderson has not shut me down. We'll see y'all then.
Good luck.